speckFINDER is important in any type of PC board manufacturing process for a variety of different reasons, and it really depends on who the end user is. It's going to be different for an operator, it's going from an engineer, a quality control inspector, for somebody who's in supervision, or a trainer. So the needs for a speckFINDER in a PC board environment is going to depend on who the end user is. speckFINDER is important for the operator because that's what speckFINDER was primarily designed for in the first place. They were having the ergonomic issues associated with prolonged use of a binocular microscope, and it affected their productivity and increased the production errors. So an operator, what's nice about the speckFINDER is it preserves the direct line of sight viewing and allows the operator, instead of having to conform their body to a piece of equipment like they have to do with a binocular microscope. If you envision a microscope at a table and somebody having to hunch over that daily, that's what the problem is with a binocular scope. With speckFINDER, it's different. They're able to position the machine that's comfortable for them and get into an ergonomic posture that's suitable for them. You know, there's some main points with the operator. We need to improve early defect identification. We need to increase throughput of compliant components. We need to reduce production and inspection errors. And we need to facilitate documentation of work, whether that's defects or production lot sampling. And so ultimately, the operator, the intention of the speckFINDER at the operator level is to avoid the cost of field failures, because that's where the real expense occurs. If we can do the detection up front and the operator is comfortable in their daily environment and the speckFINDER allows them to perform their work better, then we can avoid the cost down the road. So it's early detection and prevention now to avoid the high cost of field failures later. So a supervisor, an engineer, or quality control inspector, their use of the speckFINDER and their needs are going to be different than an operator. First of all, speckFINDER can streamline the review of documentation by an operator, but it can also help defect documentation and analysis. So an engineer is going to spend more time drilling into the detail of a defect and will be able to do things like measurement, drawings, annotations in order to capture that documentation, and they may have the need then to outbound communicate that to a supplier if they've purchased components from a supplier, or communicate that outbound to a customer. Whereas an operator is concerned with throughput and detection, an engineer, a supervisor, or a quality control inspector is also concerned with spending the time necessary to document the results of a defect or even in production lot sampling. So there are ways that speckFINDER can aid in the documentation process. It can do it with images, it can do it with video, or even video conferencing. So defect documentation also can be used for internal communication and training purposes. And so that's going to be one of the primary differences between the engineers, QC inspectors, supervisors versus what the operator would use it for. So the trainer is going to have different needs and responsibilities than either the operator, the QC people, engineers, supervisors. They're going to have a need, for example, with multiple people viewing something simultaneously. If you can envision the concept of a binocular microscope, it's very difficult in a training session if you have new people that you're trying to train or people who are coming on board for the first time to have them look at a particular object and they're sitting looking at microscopes. Through a microscope, you don't know if that person is looking at the same thing that you're intending them to look at. With the speckFINDER system, we're all looking at a screen simultaneously, so multiple users can view simultaneously. Also use of live examples, and we have split screen capabilities. We can record training videos at the component level, and it can be used in classroom and conference room training. And also we can have remote training and communication. So all of those things are attributes of the speckFINDER system that are important for a trainer.